Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is Daily Drop number 70. That's right, folks. Daily Drop number 70. 70 straight days. 70 straight days of broadcasts and podcasts of the Jeffrey Epstein Show with the daily drops and all the other stuff in between. It's been a pretty crazy ride so far, right? We've covered a lot of ground. We've covered a lot of stuff. And like I said, we're just getting started. There is so much more to cover. There is so much we haven't covered. There is so much to go back and cover still. And I haven't forgotten about that stuff. I know I told you guys we're going to do the flashback stuff, and we're going to start doing that tomorrow. I have a couple of articles picked out already. An article from Vice in 2015 we're going to check out. I have another couple of articles that I think will add a little bit of context to the things we discuss. We're going to go into the articles that talk about who was in the Black Book. So we're going to get a who's list going, and we're going to definitely start focusing on some stuff like that. And tomorrow will be the first episode, sometime during the afternoon. I'm not exactly sure the exact time yet. I have to put up some Christmas lights and stuff tomorrow, so as soon as I'm done doing that, I will directly get into these older articles, these flashback articles, because they're crucial. There's a lot of stuff that went on before the podcast even started. We've only been going for about 3 months strong now. 3.5 months. So there's a bunch of stuff that happened, prior to the podcast ever being around, obviously. And then even when the podcast first started, we were just doing one episode a week. But this case deserves so much more than once a week. You cannot cover everything in 1 hour. We can't even cover everything with the daily drops. I could literally sit on here for 4 or 5 hours a day. I could do 4 or 5 hours a day of content probably on this case, and we'd still not cover everything for a long time. That's how deep this rabbit hole is. That's how far these tentacles spread. And that is how this web has been weaved, folks. It's one of those cases where if you're not on top of it, you're lost. You can't even miss a day or 2 days. You can't miss anything in this case because so much happens on a daily basis right now. Like I said, there's a little bit of a lull. Not completely. There's a couple of stories out about Prince Andrew that we'll get to, tomorrow maybe, but they're not really concerning the Epstein case. It's more about his business practices, and it all ties in, of course, when you look at it in the big picture. But I thought that this article would be way more important tonight, the Whitney Webb article, considering she does such great work, and we've covered some of her stuff before on here, and I know that she has quality articles, and I feel like these articles are beneficial to the audience. I think that you guys, this is something that will be very beneficial to you, and it'll help you put a couple more things into context, because now we have multiple sources talking about certain things, right? And this article is about, Israel's spy operations, their blackmail operations, and if Epstein was being run as an operative. And they have some different perspectives out there, right, about who Epstein was, who he was working for, what he was doing. But this is one of the perspectives that is just this is the most reasonable and the most logical perspective. He was obviously being run by some sort of intelligence group. And obviously, the CIA knew what was going on, even if it was a Mossad operation. You aren't going to run an operation like this on American soil, and the CIA is not going to have their hands all over it, right? I mean, you would think not. And if that is the case, what an absolute failure by the CIA. So, either way, it's bad news. All right, folks, if you'd like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. Let's hop into this article, shall we? Exclusive interview. Headline: Former spy details Israel's main motive behind Epstein's sexual blackmail operation. Mint Press speaks with Ari Ben-Menashe, a former Israeli spy who worked closely with Robert Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell's father, as part of their work with Israeli intelligence, and had frequent encounters with Jeffrey Epstein. All right, folks, so look, when this all started, I knew right away what this was. Not that I had the evidence, but, when you follow this sort of stuff, especially when you follow these intelligence agencies and you know their MO, something like this happens and it occurs, and you right away, you're like, oh boy, here we go. Because it doesn't happen in a vacuum. A guy doesn't get that plea deal. This sort of stuff does not happen in a vacuum. I don't care if you're super rich and you have the connections, that's the only way you can get away with stuff like this. All right. Montreal. In recent weeks, renewed attention has been brought to the allegations that Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell's sex trafficking and sexual blackmail operation was run on behalf of Israeli military intelligence. Those claims revolve around statements made by a former Israeli military intelligence official turned public relations consultant, Ari Ben-Menashe, whose allegations regarding the Epstein scandal were reported by Mint Press this past October. Ben-Menashe's claims related to Epstein first surfaced in an interview between Ben-Menashe and Zev Shalev of the independent news outlet Narrative. Now remember, we covered that whole entire thing as well. There's an episode about that. I'm not exactly sure what number that episode is. I'll have to check my show notes, but we definitely covered that article. As detailed in a Mint Press summary and commentary of that interview, Ben-Menashe claimed to have seen Jeffrey Epstein in the office of Robert Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell's father, several times in the 80s. The 80s, folks. Now remember, that's when Jeffrey Epstein also got the Austrian passport that had the Saudi Arabian address on it. At the time, Ben-Menashe was in close contact with Robert Maxwell regarding their mutual work with Israeli military intelligence. Maxwell, in addition to heading a media empire and being a one-time member of the UK Parliament, was a long-time operative for Israeli intelligence. So much so that in 1991 his funeral was attended by no less than 6 serving and former heads of Israeli intelligence, as well as several high-ranking Israeli politicians and prime ministers. Doesn't sound like just a regular citizen, right? Doesn't sound like somebody that's not connected. It does not sound like somebody who did not do something for the state to garner that sort of respect. So again, when the evidence leads you somewhere, folks, you have to look at the evidence, and even if it's an uncomfortable place, you have to say to yourself, well, here we are. This is where the evidence leads us. And the evidence has led us, obviously, to this being a blackmail operation. Maxwell is alleged to have recruited Jeffrey Epstein for Israeli intelligence and later introduced Epstein to Ben-Menashe and another operative, Nicholas Davies. Epstein was introduced to Ben-Menashe as having been pre-approved by leading figures in Israel's military intelligence directorate known as Amman. And now Nicholas Davies was an arms trafficker, I believe. He was somebody that was involved in the Iran-Contra affair. So, Mint Press recently conducted its own interview with Mr. Ben-Menashe as part of an ongoing investigation on the life and connections of the now infamous Jeffrey Epstein. Part of that interview is provided below with relevant commentary regarding claims related to the relationship between Epstein and former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak, Epstein's trip to Tel Aviv immediately prior to his first arrest, and the reasons for Israeli military intelligence interest in orchestrating and financing major sexual blackmail operations targeting top U.S. politicians. So it's not like I'm just, speaking out of my ear, folks. It's not like I was just, shooting off at the hip. This is something that is very obvious to those of us in the know. To those of us who have, studied political science and these sort of operations, we understand what was going on here. We understand that that's the only way that he could have these people in his atmosphere. We know that Bill Clinton is not the kind of guy that's going to be subservient to anyone, unless you have some dirt on him. Prince Andrew, does he seem like the type that's going to be, a beta? Of course not. But if you have that dirt on him, well, look, let's be honest. The most expensive thing in the world, the most priceless thing in the world is data. It's worth more than gold. It's worth more than oil. Data is the most priceless asset on this whole entire planet. Israel requested that Epstein target Clinton. Mint Press News first asked Ben-Menashe about Robert Maxwell, a known asset and operative of military intelligence for Israel, having recruited Jeffrey Epstein. Ben-Menashe confirmed this to Mint Press and also noted that, after their initial meeting, Epstein was frequently present in Maxwell's office in London. During the 1980s, as Mint Press previously reported, Epstein claimed to have been an intelligence operative and so-called bounty hunter in the world of shadow finance. So, what that means is he was a guy that, a bounty hunter in the world of shadow finance. He would go and get things that maybe were quote-unquote misplaced. He had a way of finding money that, supposedly was lost. Sounds like a real savory character, huh? During this time, he was known to have developed close relationships with several British arms dealers, particularly Sir Douglas Leese. Thus, Epstein appeared to frequently be traveling between the Middle East and London, which is also supported by Epstein's now infamous Austrian passport, which he was believed to have carried during this time period. Now, why would he carry that? Why wouldn't he carry his American passport? What was he hiding? Who was he hiding from? These are questions that need to be asked. We have no answers to these questions. There is no good reason for a man to be using a fake passport to travel unless he is hiding something. Ben-Menashe told Mint Press that he had not only met Epstein after Epstein had been recently recruited by Israeli military intelligence, but had seen him on several occasions thereafter, as Epstein used to be in Robert Maxwell's office in London quite often, and would arrive there between trips to and from Israel. Now, this goes against the whole entire narrative that Ghislaine Maxwell met Epstein when she came to New York. Like I said, I always thought that they had a relationship prior to her coming to New York. We knew from previous reporting from Mint Press and elsewhere that Epstein had a relationship with Robert Maxwell that spanned all the way back into the 80s. So it would be reasonable to believe that Epstein knew Ghislaine Maxwell, considering Ghislaine was such a huge part of Robert Maxwell's life and always around. In addition, Ben-Menashe revealed his understanding of why Epstein was eventually shepherded into acting as a professional sexual blackmailer on behalf of Israeli military intelligence. Per Ben-Menashe, now this is him, this is from the source, directly from the source, folks, there were concerns among Israeli intelligence figures that, following the Reagan era, a new president would push for Israel to make peace with the Palestinians, something those officials sought to avoid by any means necessary. Again, folks, it all comes down to consolidating power. It doesn't matter about anything else. If that means you got to set up a sex trafficking ring that abuses children to get the information you want, well, that's what these intelligence services will do. These are the people that you cheer for when you cheer about anybody. Oh, there's no deep state. Oh, there's not, huh? ABM, Ari Ben-Menashe. Here's the thing, Mr. Carter, as in President Carter, the Israelis feared that Mr. Clinton, when he was campaigning for president, will be a repeat of Mr. Carter. He wanted to press them for peace with the Palestinians and all that stuff. They feared, Clinton wasn't that, but they feared he was that, and I think Mr. Epstein was sent early to catch up with President Clinton. Mint Press News. Well, that's interesting, because the first year Clinton was in office, Epstein was already attending donor diners at the White House and making White House visits as well. ABM, Ari Ben-Menashe. Yeah, that's right. I believe his biggest client was Mr. Clinton, Ketch or whatever, and he had a few other congressmen and whatnot, but Clinton was his biggest catch. Thus, Ben-Menashe argues when Bill Clinton's candidacy in the 1992 U.S. presidential election became clear, efforts were made to target him via sexual blackmail, and Jeffrey Epstein was chosen for that purpose. Bill Clinton was eventually blackmailed by the State of Israel, and his administration was also targeted by Israeli espionage as part of the mega spy scandal. Epstein's involvement in the Clinton administration and his visits to the White House date back to Clinton's first year in office. More information on the Epstein-Clinton relationship can be found in this Mint Press report. It's a hyperlink, so like I said, when you go and click on in the description, you click on this link, you can follow it and you can go down the rabbit hole yourself. In addition, Mint Press also asked Ben-Menashe if he was aware of Ghislaine Maxwell being directly involved with her father's intelligence-related activities prior to his death in 1991. Ben-Menashe noted that Ghislaine accompanied her father so frequently, including on a now infamous 1989 party on Maxwell's yacht, where Donald Trump and several key figures in the Promise software scandal were in attendance, that she was involved in his intelligence-related activities to some extent. However, he stopped short of saying how involved she was or what she has specifically been involved in prior to her father's death. That's interesting. I wonder if he has more and he's holding back, waiting to elaborate more, or if maybe he just doesn't know. See, this is the thing about Ghislaine Maxwell. She's slippery as hell. She's really playing the spy game well. She's really playing her role well. Who knows where she is right now? Like I said, is she in fear for her life? Is she in the FBI? Does the FBI have her in custody? Who knows? Who knows? When did Epstein really meet Ehud Barak? One of the most controversial ties between Epstein and powerful politicians is that between Epstein and former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak. Barak is claimed to have only met Epstein in 2002, and from that point on, their relationship was very public, with Barak frequently visiting and even spending the night at residences owned by Epstein, including apartments where he housed the underage girls that he exploited. Barak, not Barack Obama, folks, Ehud Barak, former Prime Minister of Israel, Barak also visited Epstein's now infamous island and recruited him to help fund the Israeli intelligence-connected company Carbine 911. Carbine 911 is a 911 computer program type software. It's supposedly created by Israeli intelligence, according to reporting. So again, that hyperlink is in the story. When you read the story, you can click on that and follow that rabbit hole as well. However, there appear to be indications that Epstein and Barak may have met much earlier than Barak has since claimed. Given that Ben-Menashe claimed to have learned of Epstein's recruitment by Israeli military intelligence in the 1980s, Mint Press asked if one of the people involved in his recruitment was Ehud Barak. Barak served as head of Israel's military intelligence directorate Amon from April 1983 to January 1986. Ben-Menashe could not recall the exact year when he first became aware of Epstein's recruitment by Israeli military intelligence, but stated that it was most likely during Ehud Barak's tenure as the head of Amon. Yet, even if Epstein's recruitment did not take place while Barak headed Amon, it is highly likely, per Ben-Menashe, that Epstein had met Barak during this time because Robert Maxwell became buddies with Ehud Barak, and he, Robert Maxwell, probably introduced them, the young man Epstein, to Mr. Barak, if the two were not already acquainted. Since the Epstein scandal broke, Ehud Barak has insisted that he did not meet Epstein until the year 2002 and claimed that the two had been introduced by former Israeli Prime Minister Shimon Peres. Ben-Menashe dismissed the possibility that this claim was true, emphatically stating that he was sure they had met before and that he did not believe that their first meeting was in 2002. Epstein's 2008 trip to Tel Aviv. Just a few months before he was sentenced to prison for the first time in June 2008, Jeffrey Epstein had made a sudden visit to the Israeli capital of Tel Aviv. In April of that year, the Palm Beach Daily News reported that Epstein was staying at the Tel Aviv Hilton and quoted an Epstein spokesman as saying that he was spending Passover meeting with Israeli research scientists and taking a tour of military bases. Why would a billionaire be doing that? Just a few months before he was arrested, huh? Maybe it was a strategy meeting, the same thing that Ghislaine and Andrew did. Perhaps it was that. Maybe Epstein was there to talk to his handlers to make sure that he was going to be able to wiggle his way out of it. Pure speculation on my part, folks, but it's a bit coincidental, don't you think? Sometime prior to Epstein's sentencing on June 30th of that year, Alexander Acosta, then U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Florida, signed off on a lenient sentence for Epstein, who was charged with soliciting sex from a minor. That legal arrangement has since been nicknamed the Sweetheart Deal. Acosta later told Trump transition officials prior to his nomination for Secretary of Labor that his decision to approve the Sweetheart Deal came after he had been told to back off in the Epstein case because Epstein belonged to intelligence. There you have it, folks, right from his mouth. Not like it's just something I've been saying. This is factual, but the media does not report on it. It's something they just won't report on. And Acosta, well, when asked about it, he was very coy. He slipped out of it. Nobody's been able to get him on record, so let's be real here, and let's take a step back and understand what we're hearing, all right? Acosta says that Epstein belonged to intelligence. Now, I'll leave that up to you to figure out what that means. I mean, I have my own opinions, and I've been very clear about that, but I'll never tell anyone on this podcast what to think. That's why I always tell you, look, this is my opinion. And if our opinions mesh up, great. If not, I'd love to talk about it in the emails. There's been so many great emails of people sending me emails of their theories and what they think. And I'll tell you what, the incredible conversation I have with you folks makes the show definitely worthwhile, because it is awesome, really awesome, the interaction with you guys and you ladies. You know, the information you send it's just great stuff. It's just nonstop, daily, great emails. Though Acosta did not specify from whom he had received this information, former CIA agent Phil Giraldi has made a convincing case that they originated from Epstein's then-lawyer Alan Dershowitz, a close associate of Epstein with ties to high-ranking Israeli politicians, and Barry Krischer, then Florida state attorney for Palm Beach, who recently received an award from the Anti-Defamation League for his outstanding contribution to the legal profession and to the community at large. Well, isn't that nice? The ADL, a group who likes to tell everybody how to live their lives and what they should and shouldn't say, is giving awards to guys that enabled Epstein's behavior. Isn't that fantastic? All of these people who live in these ivory towers seem to be the biggest scumbags. As detailed in a previous Mint Press report on Epstein's ties to Israel published this past August, the ADL's longtime top funders have close ties to Epstein and his sexual blackmail network, in particular the Bronfman family of Seagram's fame. All right, I got to stop right there and pause, because the Bronfmans are connected to a lot of funky stuff, folks. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of similarities to what's going on with the Epstein case and what was going on with Keith Raniere and Nexium and Allison Mack, and there is a whole lot of there. So I'd like to pivot and talk a little bit about that at some point and talk a little bit about Nexium, but it's not directly connected to this Epstein case. So it puts me in kind of a position, right? So maybe I'll just do like a special one-off where we discuss Nexium. How about this? How about you guys send me some emails and let me know what you think? If you guys want to hear some more about Nexium, we could do like a 15 or 20 or maybe 30-minute segment and just do an overall framework of what Nexium is and why they're connected to the Epstein situation. There's no ties been made in the mainstream media. There's no lines to be drawn so far, but there's a lot of the same participants that ran with Epstein, that ran with Keith Raniere, and we all know what that means, folks, right? We all know that they weren't just hanging out because they were friendly. They were all working on things together. This Bronfman family is dirty as dirty could be. Ben-Menashe told Mint Press that Epstein's 2008 Tel Aviv visit was likely blowing smoke and involved Epstein trying to make himself important, maybe not to get arrested, and hoping that the Israelis would help him. He then added, at the time, they probably did help Epstein, but added that the second time, well, it would be a harder sell. So that's what I said the first time. He flew out there. He had a sit down, a talk. He was like, "Look, you guys got to get me out of this jam. I still got work to do. Let's get things cracking." And then, they worked their magic. They pulled whatever strings they had to pull, talked to judges, talked to prosecutors, talked to whoever it is they had to talk to, and got him that sweetheart deal. The second time around, well, they couldn't get that deal again. There was much, much, much too much scrutiny. So either A, they let him hang, no pun intended, or B, they get rid of him. Again, I have no idea, folks. I'm not going to sit here. I'll be the first one to tell you. I don't know if he killed himself. I don't know if he was murdered. But what I do know is that the government and the people in charge of the case are not being forthcoming with the information. They're being very sneaky, just like with everything else. There is no need for them to be so sneaky. Show us what you have that brings you to this conclusion. Pretty simple, but instead, they like to throw up their smoke screens and then dance around and call you a conspiracy theorist because you demand answers. The people paying the bill, the people that are, stuck with the bill at the end of the dinner, right? That's what it's like. You and I, we're at dinner, and the government's like that friend that always says they left their wallet at home. I don't have my wallet, so you guys are going to have to cover it this time. That's basically what the government does with us taxpayers. They just do whatever the hell they want, and they expect us to just cover come out of the pocket, no big deal. And yet, our tax dollars are going to defend people like Jeffrey Epstein, to giving him the courtesy of a call, hey, why don't you turn yourself in, instead of a no-knock raid, breaking this son of a bitch's door in and dragging him out in his stupid-ass slippers, one with a screw on it and one with the U on the other? Come on, give me a break, all right? We're ripping guys like Roger Stone out of his house, 70-year-old men who are charged with sports gambling-related charges before it became legal. We're ripping those people out of their houses, but we're letting this idiot, Jeffrey Epstein, we're giving him the courtesy of a call? Nope, I don't like it. I don't think it's right. I don't think it's fair. I think that the two-tier justice system must be completely and utterly destroyed. Pull it down from the very top to its very foundation, folks. It needs to be scattered to the four corners of the wind, because guess what? There's only one. Justice is justice, right? If you've committed the crime, you have to pay the piper, and that's the end of it. It doesn't matter if you have money. You shouldn't be able to buy your way out of molesting people. You shouldn't be able to buy your way out of any sort of crime, all right? But no. They still have the same laws and the same people protecting these idiots. Well, that party's coming to a quick end in the year 2020, because like I have been saying, this is the year that the predator turns into the prey. Not the Me Too movement, not a march in the streets, actual hardcore journalism work to destroy these predators, because that's what it takes. It takes evidence. It takes evidence. Don't get me wrong. Righteous indignation is great. Rage is great. But that doesn't do anyone any good if it's just slacktivism. If you're just complaining to your friends. If you're just, raging at the machine from behind your computer. You got to do more than that. We got to do more than that. And that's what we're doing. That's what you folks are doing. Nobody forces you to come and download a podcast, a form of long-form informational entertainment. You could easily read these articles yourself, but you're engaged and you want to know the scoop. You want to be involved. And that's what we're all doing here. At the end of the day, that's why we're all here. We want justice. We want answers. And to be honest with you folks, we're tired of being lied to. I know I am. I know that I am. I have had enough. I have had enough of these liars in government. I have had enough of these criminals. That's what they are. Let's just be honest, right? I shouldn't even call them liars. These criminals in government who rule over us with an iron fist. We are done with it. Prince Andrew, Ghislaine Maxwell, all of these other scoundrels, you're in the crosshairs. You're not wriggling out of this. You're not talking your way out of this. You're not buying your way out of this. The people demand justice. All right, everybody, I will be back tomorrow. Like I said, I'll be back with the morning update. I'm going to do a flashback article sometime in the afternoon, and then we'll be back with our usual daily drop. So I hope everybody's having a great Saturday night. I hope that the weekend's been kind to you all, and I hope that Saturday night, a great Friday night, excuse me. Getting ahead of myself here, excited about Saturday coming up. I hope that everybody's having a great Friday night. I hope that you guys are enjoying your weekend thus far, and I hope that the rest of it is just as enjoyable, and I will be right there with you riding shotgun as your co-host, as your co-pilot when you're listening to these podcasts during the weekend. All right, folks, I'll talk to you guys all tomorrow. If you'd like to contact me, you can do that at Bobbycapucci at protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI at protonmail.com. And if you would like to support the show, you can click the GoFundMe link inside the description box.